Absolutely. And thank you for having me here. And for everyone in the room and watching afterwards and everything, thank you for putting up with the audio issues. I know as a podcaster myself and someone that's done webinars that there can be challenges sometimes. So thanks for the quick action there, Danny, and for having me. My
No
name is
worries.
Dan. Yeah, my name is Dan Shore. I have been doing SEO for a long time. It all started back when I was teaching music lessons. I have a degree in music, and I've been teaching piano lessons to little kids for about 12 years. And I kind of woke up one day and I realized I did not want to show another little kid where middle C was on the piano ever again. And in the time I've been teaching, I've been gradually learning like web design and building websites with like HTML and stuff like that. I was kind of a hacky designer. I was never really like good at that, was never really good at programming. But when I discovered SEO, because I had to grow my own music business and I helped my dad grow his business. He has an e-commerce store I built from scratch. That's really when I kind of fell in love with SEO in particular. And so I've been doing that really professionally for about 10 years. I have my own company, Evolving SEO. I'm also what's called a Moz Associate. So for anyone that's not sure, Moz is kind of like the HubSpot of SEO. So like they're the biggest SEO software company in the SEO space. And I also recently taught an 8-week live course on Conversion XL, who I'm sure a lot of you may know of, a very well-known conversion firm. And yeah, that's pretty much what I'm up to nowadays. I also have a podcast called Experts on the Wire, where we talk about SEO and marketing and all kinds of stuff like that. So again, thank you for having me here. I'm excited to jump into to SEO for Amazon sellers.
No worries. Okay, again, thank you again, Dan, for coming on. And guys, apologies for the situation with the audio. Hopefully it's now resolved. So let's get straight into the program today, because we as Amazon sellers, we obviously are focusing a lot more that takes place on Amazon, and we've obviously the people discuss about running external ads like Facebook and stuff like that. Very little is discussed with regards to Google in terms of organic ranking and sending traffic to your listing and your Shopify stores. So I thought I'd bring Dan in today to go through all of these different techniques and different things that can be achieved by utilizing Google and leveraging that, and obviously clear up some of the misgivings as well, because the SEO industry can be a bit of a fly-by-night industry, Dan, can't it? So there's a lot of stuff that you could do could end up being you get penalized for. So it's good to cover that stuff. So what I'd like to start with, let's start with Google search, and then we'll look at the subjective view and the myths of the algo. So let's start with, can you summarize how you would rank in 2017 on Google?
Absolutely. And at risk of sounding simple, and I don't want people to think this is just going to be like me saying, create great content, but we need to start there, right? We need to start with the simple high-level overview of ranking. And you are going to hear a lot of things nowadays in SEO that it takes great content. We're going to dig into what great means. And it takes being popular on the web. I mean, you need things like backlinks. You need to be popular somewhere. The Google has like this thing where they don't want to make your site popular. They want to rank popular sites. So it's really about having a great site with great content, whether that be a good product or a good service or good information through blog posts, and developing some sort of promotion strategy around that site or whatever it is you're trying to rank. I mean, we're going to talk about ranking Amazon listings a little bit later. So you really need to promote whatever it is you're trying to rank in Google outside of Google and outside of your website. So really, in a nutshell, it's about the quality of your website, the quality of the traffic you're sending there, and the quality of the promotion you're doing outside of that. And I'd be happy to get into what some of these myths are.
Yeah. Okay. So we can get to the full on the myths in a little while, but why don't we start with we're kind of summarizing with regards to how to rank. What links would you say are important for SEO in 2017?
Yeah, let's dive a little deeper into that. And great question, because I did mention links are important, but when people hear links, they immediately jump to wanting to do like the next tactic or the next thing to scale link building or to do it, at some big level. And the truth is, if you try to scale link building in a way that Google's going to pick up on patterns, meaning patterns in over optimized anchor text or the same widget link everywhere, any link that's done at scale with like a link tool or some sort of like, big giant link scheme, private blog networks, like all this thing, that's something that Google's probably going to catch on to sooner than later nowadays. They have all kinds of algorithms out there that are catching those things. So the reverse of that is, what's a good link? A good link is a link that, in general, is a link that you do not control. A link that was given to you by the webmaster that's giving you that link, the person that's creating that content, the writer that's writing that blog post, the editor at the newspaper, the person that's doing a review on your product. The people that are linking to you naturally, even if you encourage them, it's okay to encourage people a little bit, but don't tell them what anchor text to use. Don't tell them exactly how and where to link to you. Don't pay for the link. All of those naturally received links are really the ones that you're trying to earn. And it comes down to being natural and looking natural, because Google, think about it, Google's an algorithm. They're all about picking up patterns, and they do that through algorithms. Yes, they do have a manual web spam team that's going to try to pick up links with the human eye, but they're going to rely more and more and more in the future on their algorithm. So you want to try to avoid patterns that really, frankly, are spammy and look spammy to Google.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so for people that don't know, can you explain what domain authority and PageRank authority is?
Yeah, this is in regards to links as well. So this comes up all the time. So we're going to step back in history just a tiny bit. So Google has this thing called PageRank. It actually is not a web page. It's referring to Larry Page, the guy that...
Yeah, was one of the founders. Yeah.
Yeah, the patent, exactly. So this was Google's original sort of ranking system for how much value a link was going to pass to the website it was linking to. And it was just simply a scale of 1 to 10 that we were aware of in the public eye. So the company I mentioned, Moz, that I'm an associate with, they came along later on, and they invented these metrics, domain authority and page authority, to try to emulate Google's PageRank metric. So instead of doing it from 1 to 10, Moz came along and said, we're going to make it more granular. We're going to go from 1 to 100. So if you're a 100 domain authority website, then you're facebook.com. If you're 1 domain authority, you're brand new. You just bought your domain name and you're starting out from scratch. So it's a rough measure. Domain authority is a rough measure at how authoritative a website is from a link standpoint. But people need to keep in mind that this metric comes from Moz. It does not come from Google. Moz is doing their best to try to simulate what Google is giving a website for PageRank. So in most cases, it's a good measure. If you're a website 30 and you're trying to rank above websites that are domain authority 60, 70, you're going to have a tough time with that, right? So it's a good rough measure. Again, looking at it in terms of the time dimension, if you're a website that's been promoting, and you go from 30 to, let's say, domain authority 45 within a year, that's good. That's good progress. If you're promoting, and you're stuck at 30 for a year, for 2 years, you're not making any progress from a link standpoint. So it's good to look at it in a big picture point of view. And then page authority is simply Moz's metric applied at a page level, meaning if you have a product page on your Shopify website, you're going to see a page authority that's specific only to that page. In most cases, it's a lower number than your whole domain authority. So that's kind of the difference. Is I like to usually look at just a website's domain authority, because page authority can sometimes be a little less accurate than domain authority. So it's really a great rough measure as to how authoritative your website is from a link building standpoint.
Yeah, makes sense. And in terms of duplicate content penalty, I mean, is that fact or is that fiction?
Yeah, I'm glad you're asking this. This is such a common question. Google came out, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, they came out with one of their blog posts, and the blog post said, "Dear webmasters, dear SEOs, we're going to penalize you if you have duplicate content." And of course, with Google, they're very vague. They're very like Google speak, and you don't always know what they're saying. You kind of have to pick it apart. And so a lot of people took this to mean that, like if I have the same exact description of a product from the supplier and I just paste that on my website, I'm going to get a penalty because it's duplicate content. That's not at all what Google meant. Google's duplicate content penalty, its actual definition of what it is if you build a scraper website that steals content from other people around the web and pull it onto your website claiming it's your own content. So it really should be more called the stolen content penalty rather than duplicate content penalty. That's really what the actual hard and fast penalty is. Now, it actually can be a little bit problematic to have duplicate content. You're not going to get a penalty from Google, but let's say you have 100 product pages and every single title tag is the same because you haven't gone in and manually written unique title tags. Or let's say you're taking the product descriptions right from the manufacturer and you're not creating your own unique ones. That's going to bring down the quality level of your website. You're not going to get a penalty, but I advise to everyone to always have unique content. It's just that people think they're going to get a penalty. So oftentimes in their minds, they escalate this to like a priority level 10, when really it should be just a basic best practice of the content on your website.
Gotcha. And what about page speed? Does that consider as a ranking factor? Obviously, that makes a difference with user experience, but where does that come into the ranking aspect?
Exactly. This was another thing where Google came out and they had a blog post and they said page speed's a ranking factor. And a lot of people took this very literally, again, like the duplicate content thing. It's been since clarified. The only way page speed is a direct ranking factor is if your page loads at 20 seconds and all the competitors are like, you know, like a normal 5, 6, 7 seconds. That's when they're going to demote you a little bit. When your page is just so slow compared to the rest of the web, like there's something really, really wrong with it, that's where it's a direct ranking factor. But actually, just to clarify that even a little bit more, it's not like if you are 5 seconds and your competitor's 4 seconds, they're not going to just rank your competitor higher than you because of that one little 1 second difference. Mm-hmm. However, to your point, to what you said when you asked the question, page speed is important for UX, for conversion rate, for all of these other factors, which then secondarily feeds back into Google's ranking algorithm, because Google is looking at user metrics. They're looking at conversion rates or how well the user is satisfied with your website. So if page speed is preventing users from being happy with your site and your content, then that's where it's going to be an issue with your ranking.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what about HTTPS? Where do you stand with this?
Yeah, so this is SSL. It's having a secure site for the listeners and watchers out there. If you asked me this 6 months ago, I would have said what I've been saying along, which is hold off, stay on HTTP if you are, and only make the big switch if you really need to do this because of security or some other factor.
Do you want to just for people that, like, if it's a bit techie for them, what does the S at the end stand for? Because that's the differentiation between the two.
That's right.
Does that mean
it means you have a secure website, essentially. So I'm not even that super technical. All I know is it means you have an SSL certificate, which means that you have a secured website. So no information's passing, you know, I believe from the server to your, I don't know exactly all the technicalities, but it's secure, more or less.
Yeah. Cool.
Now,
cool. No, go on, elaborate. Apologies.
Yeah. No, it's fine. So prior to 6 months, I have been saying, don't go SSL or HTTPS if you don't need to. Now, I'm proactively recommending that everyone with a website switch to HTTPS or an SSL certificate, because I'm seeing it being more and more important for SEO. Google has come out and said a few years ago, we're going to give SSL websites a slight ranking boost. And I have been seeing that ranking boost sort of increase a little bit over time. So you're probably going to get a little bit of a boost if you go to HTTPS. Now, with that said, there's technical requirements and considerations. So actually, I don't know if you do show notes or anything like that, but there's a lady by the name of Aleda that I interviewed in my podcast a few weeks ago, and she has an HTTPS migration checklist. I'm sure if you just Google that, you can find it. So it's Aleda, Aleyda, I believe is how you spell it, Spanish spelling. HTTPS checklist. It's like a complete to-do list for what to do if you want to go SSL.
Excellent. And so just like, you know, moving on from slightly in a different direction. Now, with Amazon, we utilize Amazon sponsored ads to help with organic ranking for the correlation through the keywords, through sales, etc. So create visibility, spend money, and to get that visibility on those keywords. And then there's a correlation there between what happens when you're running PPC ads, spending money, keywords convert, sales are made, etc. And then you'll start to organically rank. If you were to, I mean, I done a video on this about 2 years ago. So basically I showed the correlation across 3 different products and said, right, these are my, this is the position of all these keywords as I listed these 3 items. I used those same keywords that I was tracking in my PPC campaigns, and I showed you the correlation as you start to go from the bottom of the Amazon jungle and start to rank on those keywords out of nowhere once you start to get sales on said keywords. So in terms of thinking of Google, where does it stand with AdWords? And does AdWords help in any way in terms of organic rankings in Google?
This is a super interesting question. Yes and no. And I'm going to break that down for you.
Yeah.
No, because there's no direct thing. Like I'm pretty confident when Google says the AdWords side of Google and the organic search side, they don't even like talk to one another. The only things that they talk about is, I believe, if they're deciding what things they want where in SERP space in like the search engine result page. That's it. Layout things, sure, but there's no direct influence from rankings if you're going to run PPC ads. Now, with that said, this is where the yes answer comes in. I believe it was a year or 2 ago, Chevy turned off all of their PPC ads and they lost 30% of their organic traffic. Now, this is interesting. So why is this? It's believed that when a PPC ad shows co-occurring with an organic ad, it increases click-through rate on your organic ad. So in other words, you show up in 2 places because you've got the ad and the organic. More people click on organic because it's sort of you're taking up more branding space in the search result page. So I would certainly consider running PPC, not only to maybe test traffic, it's a great way to test how conversion rates might work, or to just get more traffic, but also to consider the fact that it might help your SEO. The other great benefit of running PPC ads is you can test titles, landing pages, you can test conversion rates, like I said. So it's a great testing environment. And then take the results, like take the success stories, take titles or calls to actions that work from PPC and bring them into your SEO titles and meta descriptions for the landing pages. So no direct ranking factor, but there's a lot of sort of mutual benefits to doing both.
Yeah, because I imagine as well is that once you stop running PPC ads, you're reducing your visibility, especially if you're, someone of that size is spending a lot of money. So you think if someone does a search, finds them at the top of Google as a search ad, click through, goes to the site, but then leaves and wants to go back again, then in their mind they're going to go back to their search, but their site, but you maybe use different keywords and go back there organically, which may start to explain why there was a drop off, because the visibility had been reduced at the top, if that makes sense, rather than there's a complete correlation between converting keywords that add in their campaigns to like organic placement on rankings on said keywords that were shared in the same campaign. So yeah, it's interesting. So the debate is still out there, really. There's no hard evidence, because I've been convinced for years, and people have been telling me otherwise, that there isn't any correlation. But I'd love there to be correlation, because obviously there's going to make a big difference to people spending on advertising. But I just thought and what I've read, interestingly enough, is that because of all the anti-competitive laws and where Google is so big, saying that you could basically use Google's PPC platform to help with organic ranking doesn't kind of sit with antitrust, I don't believe, So I'd have thought that they'd, from my understanding, they're 2 separate entities. You got the advertising and you got organic, and like they don't really mix. It's like, that's your platform, that's ours. I mean, we'll share resources, but there's no like indication of helping each other in the sense of rankings, as far as I understand. But obviously I'm not inside of Google. But yeah, very, very interesting. Let's talk about link building tactics, the do's and the don'ts.
Yes.
Because I think a lot of people are led astray with this, with angel links and blasters and all this shit stuff that's out there that could literally blow up your website and stick you in the sandbox and you'll never get out again. So do you want to just talk about what links are important today and how to go about acquiring them?
Sure. I want to start this by asking everyone out there in the audience, if you're paying attention, to imagine just a simple Venn diagram, two circles. On one side, you have link building tactics. On the other side, you have marketing or business or PR or stuff that even if you didn't know about SEO, you would do anyways. And I'm going to get into these specific tactics and give that to your audience in a moment. But the overlap of that Venn diagram is basically all safe ground for link building. If something is in only the link building side of the Venn diagram, so like you said, blasts and tools and automation and private blog networks, and it's not something you would ever do going about your normal marketing, advertising, business life, then that's probably a bad idea for link building. I like to try to people like to overcomplicate SEO in many ways, and I like to try to boil it down as simply as possible. And I think that's just a great simple way to think about good and bad link building. Now, with that said, let's get to some specific do's, some positive ways to think about building links. And really, when I say build links, hopefully it carries the assumption that it's not just about the link. It's about all of the other benefits that you may get with a link. That could be exposure, referral traffic, the relationships that you develop in the process of building the link. So there's a lot of other benefits to that. So I'm going to name a few. One great one that I still like and use it all the time is guest posting. And I don't mean like what we said, finding 1,000 blogs and firing off an automated email to all of them saying, can I guest post on your blog? And there's no relevance to who you're pitching to. There's no attempt to create a relationship. There's no attempt to provide them value, but actual like legitimate guest blog. I'll give you an example. So I'm a Moz Associate, right? But before I was a Moz Associate, and as a Moz Associate, by the way, I can blog on their main blog anytime I want. I can just shoot the editor an email. I say blog, I have a blog idea. I can post. They have a domain authority 90, and I can publish on their site whenever I want and link to whatever I want from that. But that came because I was an active member of their community for about a year before really ever becoming a Moz Associate. I posted a post on their user-generated blog, which is called UMoz, which is not like their official blog, but it's the user blog. And so that's an extreme example. I spent a lot of time building up a relationship with them. But if your audience out there, if you're trying to promote your site, to promote your products, to promote your brand, do a little bit of homework. Find a site that publishes in and around your niche and your topic, but maybe is a little weak in the specific area that you want to write about. So let's say you're selling a product like cookware product, right? And you find a cooking or food related website and no one's really talked about Mexican food or Mexican recipes. And you notice that's 10 extra minutes of research to find that gap where you can provide value. And then what I recommend to everyone is don't think about a guest post as just one and done. Make it a relationship. Make it something where you're posting every month or every quarter or even once a year. I interviewed somebody named Christy Hines on my podcast a long time ago now, like 9 months ago. And the entire episode is about how to develop your guest blogging strategy, how to pitch websites, how to find the targets. And so definitely check out that episode. There's a lot of tools and details in there. But when it comes back down to it, real guest posting, providing value is still a great way to acquire backlinks. Just go after real stuff. Try to target sites that are relevant, that have a benefit beyond the link.
So sorry, just to turn that around for an Amazon seller, my head's going round. It's like, do guest posting, but Amazon people are selling products. So like a lot of guest posting works for consultants, and it's good to get leads for your business and links back to your website and stuff like that. What about as an Amazon seller? To give us an example, you sell, like maybe that you're in the beauty category and you sell serum creams and stuff. Where would you look for the right authority-based websites to get those kind of nice links back? What kind of, give us an example of that.
Sure. I think part of this is people need to put a little bit of mind shift and put on a different hat, right? So pretend you're a teacher, for example. Teach somebody how to use your product. For number one, or provide a review of a series of products that all kind of go together and include your product in that. So maybe there's a beauty public, like think of yourself as a publisher not somebody selling products when you're going out to get guest posts. And I know this might not be right for everybody. Not everybody wants to be a writer. Not everyone wants to be a publisher. Maybe find somebody that could publish something for you as a guest. Maybe find somebody that does write about your product or beauty products that they can give a guest publication. But I think the idea is you're not directly selling your product, or you're not directly like just posting, buy my product as a guest post. You're finding a way to share, to teach about it, to maybe include it in a list of other products that go together in a package that people might find value in that curation. I think really you just need to pretend you're a teacher, pretend you're a curator, pretend you're a publisher, and put on some sort of hat that is a little bit different than your Amazon seller hat for the sake of getting that extra promotion. Now, in terms of how to find them, I mean, you can very simply just go to Google. You can go to Google and type, beauty blog or, beauty tips and see who ranks for that. You can go to some other tools. One's called BuzzSumo, and BuzzSumo is a great tool where you can enter any topic and you can see the websites that have had the most social shares around that topic within the last year. And you can run filters. You can search for influencers around the topic. So let's say you want to find a beauty influencer to get to write a post for you. You can find them in BuzzSumo as well. So there's a lot of ways to do it, but I think a lot of it comes down to just, simple thinking about how to find these sites on the web using simple search tools like Google.
Yeah. So obviously this as good as they are is getting a good authority link. I mean, I write content for online publications as well, and I try and write legacy pieces that last the test of time. I done a Canton Fair piece, which was over 5,500 people, and it was guest worded by a series of other Amazon speakers and people that work in our industry. And so because Canton comes up twice a year, once in April, which is currently going on at the moment, and also in October, that piece of content keeps rising again. I keep getting the emails in and around that period. Oh, great piece, thank you for the information. And so I think to elaborate on what you're saying there, it's important to do timeless pieces as well that can be reoccurring, like you said.
Yes.
So with that's putting some decent effort in. What I'm really interested in let people know is because there's so much garbage that's on places like Fiverr. So let's talk about spun content, link farms, link blast, all this shitty kind of attributes that people can use and blow themselves up with. Can you, as an expert, please talk the audience through these and the dangers that are involved?
Yeah, I mean, I think really what it comes down to is they're all automated. They all leave patterns that Google's algorithms can easily pick up on. They have an algorithm called Penguin it's been out since I think 2012 now, or 13. That's been years being developed and refined. They're using machine learning to get better at all this stuff. So they're getting really, really good at picking this stuff up. Now, even if you don't get a penalty, Google's just going to flat out not even count those links. They're just going to completely disregard them. So even if you're spending $100 or $200 to try to get these spun links or get link farms going, I mean, you're just wasting your money doing that because nothing's going to happen from that because Google is just going to simply ignore them. That's best case. Worst case, you're going to be building your traffic. You're going to be driving revenue and making a living, and maybe depending upon supporting your families and buying food and paying rent with all this stuff. And then Google's going to hit your site. And then, getting really real, you're going to not be able to afford your mortgage payment because you spun some content. So I want people to really understand the real life impacts. People have done this stuff. They've relied on Google for their income. Google has come and penalized them, and they've lost their homes. They've lost their income source. And so these really sad stories happen. But that's the dangers that you're dealing with trying those tactics. Not to be totally negative, I would love to circle back to a couple other good link opportunities for e-commerce and Amazon people. So I think a few things that can work really well, again, as long as it's done in the right way with that Venn diagram, is scholarships. Scholarships, I think, can work well for e-commerce because you mentioned these people are selling products. A lot of times they're not publishers. But back to the beauty example, right? If you are selling beauty products and you want to promote your Shopify store, set up $1,000 scholarship that's awarded to one recipient. and, you know, email all the relevant beauty schools or beauty departments or fashion departments or whatever related industry it is. You know, set it up like it's a legit scholarship. It's a real reward. You're not trying to trick people, and promote it. You know, send it, email it around to like 100 different schools or 200 schools. See who will accept your generous offer to offer $1,000, $2,000 scholarship. Is that a good chunk of cash? Yes, but you're going to get a nice handful of .edu links, which a lot of us in the SEO world know is still being pretty powerful because they are harder to get. You know, so they're very coveted in that sense. So I think scholarship links are something to consider. I also think that doing co-marketing with similar companies is a really great way to go as well. I mean, look at what we're doing, right? You have seller sessions. I do an SEO podcast. We're co-marketing right now. We're each going to get a link from each other's website from doing these shows together, in addition to the exposure and all the other benefits. So if somebody out there is in the beauty industry, find a beauty school where you can co-market with them. Find a way to collaborate on something. Are they doing a podcast? Great. Be a guest on their podcast. Do they do, you know, real life beauty sessions in New York City and you happen to be in New York City? Great. Show up and like teach some people how to use your products. I think there's a lot of ways to leverage co-marketing to not only acquire backlinks, but just really promote your store and promote your brand in general.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. No, it's good. And in terms of, you know, just because I'm trying to move around to, like, we've done a bit of background here, it'd be good to get into, like, most Amazon sellers that are reached a certain level are now moving on to their own commerce platform. So it'd be good to get them to be able to optimize on page and things like that. So if they've got a Shopify store, can you just give me a bit of a rundown in that most Amazon sellers are fully aware of how to do keyword research for their campaigns for on Amazon, on page, etc. But what's the best way of achieving this if you run a Shopify store? So obviously looking for product keywords which has commercial user intent in terms of purchasing. What would you do in this situation?
Yeah, I mean, now if we're talking about a Shopify or e-commerce store, we're talking about just SEO for any website, for an e-commerce website.
That's right. Yeah. But pretty much most of the Shopify stores in terms of Amazon FBA. But yeah, this would work universally across Magento and WordPress and things like that.
Yeah, so it starts with the keywords. The core pillar of SEO is what keyword are you trying to rank for? And like, if you get that wrong, it's like it's like running the wrong race, like in the wrong direction. It's you're going to miss everything entirely if you don't start with the right keyword target. So everyone in the e-commerce scenario needs to understand the idea of there's a lot of synonyms, but a product keyword, buyer's intent keyword, a transactional keyword. All of these basically mean that the keyword typed into Google is somebody intending to buy something. So it's not just what's an example of like something one of your buyers might be selling, like some kind of food product or?
Yeah, I mean, a home and kitchen product. Let's just say, I'll make you laugh, but let's say spatulas, which is very competitive. Yeah.
So a lot of people are like, oh, great, I want to rank for spatula, right? But then go to Google and search spatula, and I guarantee you're going to see lots of what I call informational results. You might see some e-commerce results, some Google shopping, because it's a mix, right? But if you're thinking, number one, you're going to rank for spatula, you're probably crazy. But number two, if you do rank for that, if that's going to translate to revenue for you, you're probably crazy as well, because really the bottom line is that's not a conversion intent keyword. It's a very broad, vague keyword, just spatula. So what I recommend everyone doing selling products should amend to all the keywords, like whatever basically the generic product term is, spatula, shoe, shirt, phone, whatever it is. Amend some buyer's intent phrases to that. So like for sale, purchase, buy online, purchase online. And you probably don't see this in Amazon because everyone's there with the intent to purchase to begin with. So people
they're already on platform, so they're not going to say buy spatula because they're already in the purchased area. They just want to search for spatula. So it changes up the dynamics of what needs to be achieved in terms of keyword intent.
That's exactly right. And so for Google, you need to show the user that you have this thing for sale. So to cut right to the definitive action item on this, on your product page, in the title tag And in the language in your website on the page, don't just say spatula hyphen store name, say like spatula for sale or purchase spatula, or, you know, buy the best spatula in the world online. Like have some buyer's intent keyword or key phrase in your title tag. That's going to help push you up for the buyer's intent keyword rankings in Google, making you more relevant to that, and then making you appear in those more buyer's intent searches. And that's going to be the searches that really drive your conversion rate up.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And so in terms of on-page SEO factors for commerce sites, do you want to give us a bit of a breakdown, the important factors?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned titles. That's an important factor. Page title is probably one of the biggest on-page ranking factor in SEO right now. So that's what shows up at the tab at the top. 60 character maximum length. So people just keep that in mind. Try to put the keyword or the key phrase towards the beginning of the title. Then from there, URL. URL is pretty important for ranking. So like mystorename.com/product/spatula. You know, that's a pretty good bet. You probably don't need to put the buyer's intent phrase in the URL. Just make it the product. So if you're drilling down into like, you know, women's small size dress, like it's going to be the full product name in the URL. That's a good start. What Google really doesn't like, and I'm sure Shopify sort of takes care of automatically, are these like ugly URLs that are just parameters or like, you know, the code for the product and not the actual product name. So if you're on Magento or some kind of other platform, definitely avoid those. Then it comes down to your product content on the page. Great product photos, not only for on the page, but Google image search is a really strong buyer's intent search platform right now. Google.com/images. And actually Google's been showing ads in Google image search. So they know people are looking for products there. But great product photos on your product page, the ability to zoom in if that's possible. Then you want to make your page easy to share, right? Like if you're trying to sell your product, like put very obvious tweet buttons, Facebook share buttons, make it easy for them to share that URL. The UX of that page is important. So I mentioned like a long while ago, like Google's looking at page speed, right, as a user metric signal. They're looking at how well are users like navigating around the page. Is the page clear? Is the text easy to read? Is the colors easy to read the text? So I would take a general UX and CRO approach to the page as well. And then product reviews are actually really important. Google looks for signs of engagement and community. So in the blogging world, blog comments are a ranking factor. Good blog comments, not just like, hey, great post, but like actual real blog comments. A sign of community engagement is really what Google's looking for. So if your product is so great and your store is so great at selling it, you're going to get some reviews at some point eventually. Now you can nudge people along for those reviews, or they can come in organically, but one way or another, trying to acquire real legitimate reviews that aren't fake, that you're not going to Fiverr and getting, are a great ranking signal as well for the product pages.
Excellent. And I imagine as well is that when you build a store, a lot of sellers on Amazon will start off with individual SKUs and then they'll create variations. So they may not, you know, as a private label and the work that goes involved, they might not generally get to like 500 products. They might have a range of like 3 different brands and maybe 6 in each with some variations. But obviously it'll start to get messy on the site. What kind of factors are involved with structuring your pages and getting that right at the beginning, like the navigation, breadcrumbing, etc.? Do you want to give us some feedback on that?
Absolutely. I mean, you said breadcrumbs. Like 100% of the time, I'm recommending breadcrumbs on e-commerce sites. It really helps.
Explain breadcrumbs, sorry, because I'm going ahead, but some of the audience may not know what breadcrumbs are.
Yeah, sure. Breadcrumbs are the little links when you land on an inner page on a website. It says home, and then it might say men's, and then it might say shoes, and then it says the product name. All those are little links that you can click on. Those are breadcrumbs showing the hierarchy of where you are in the website and where the product or category page fits into that. So useful. I recommend them to everyone. I mean, if you've got a website that's more than 50 or 100 pages, I mean, add breadcrumbs on the site. I believe Shopify will use that functionality for you. Magento offers that as well, I believe. Super, super important. When it comes to navigation, also quite important. You need to strike a balance though. You know, you shouldn't you shouldn't have these big, I mean, in most cases, unless you're like Target and you're giant, right? You shouldn't have these big mega menus with like 100 category options in that, right? Try to find like a nice balance where you're providing enough navigation to get people into the categories that they want to browse around, but not too much where you're literally linking to like every single little thing, like men's size 5, like, you know, you don't need to provide that much detailed of a navigation, but some way that users can, like, if they land on a random product, they can easily jump with one click to another area categorically of your products. I think that's super important. You know, I don't know how technical you want to get, but you know, there's e-commerce brings about a whole lot of issues with pagination and sorting and filtering and faceted nav. So, I mean, you tell me how deep down that rabbit hole you should
you
go.
know, it's good. The thing is, people need to understand the fundamentals and be able to build going forward. So it's good to know, like, because it can still get messy. Some people can build a website with the intent, they've got it all structured, they've got their pages structured, they've got the rankings going on, and suddenly it's like, well, I now need to do a redesign because I've just added 30 products, but you've got this awful navigation system and you need to change the URL. And then, because obviously that's going to dump off a lot of traffic. As soon as, you know, if people that know about websites realizes that no one wants to do a refresh because there's all that pre-measuring to make sure that when you're moving over to a new structure, that you're not going to lose all your traffic and wipe out all your rankings overnight because the URL is slightly changed, etc.
Right.
So yeah, so it's important. I mean, obviously we don't have time to go into full depth, but it'd be good to understand is that what should people do? Are they looking at my website / products / category / then what the product is, or what would you suggest for people with say 10 to 20 products and people with say 50 to 100 products?
I see. Yes. Yeah. Let's go into a couple of simple examples. So
Yeah.
if you have a smaller e-commerce site, 10, 20 products, you probably honestly don't need to think too much about it. Like if you know you're not going to expand to a much bigger store, it's going to be hard to mess up a smaller site. But like in general, what I usually recommend is having subfolders for the categories. So, you know, mystore.com/men's, put all your men's products there, or /cookware, or whatever the category is, right? But then your product, and this applies to bigger sites as well, your product can go in what's called a flat architecture in the URL, meaning mystore.com/product name. And that's flat up against the domain name. And oftentimes that works very well. I know big sites like Zappos do that, at least the last time I looked at them. That adds the benefit because when you're adding more and more layers to that URL, like let's say you end up with like three categories and then the product name, you're just sort of like diluting, you're pushing away the product name away from the domain name. And like, this is getting all kind of geeky and technical SEO speaking, but like supposedly maybe there's a little more effect when that product name is closer to your domain name. Who knows if that's totally true or like how that would work, but I think it's a good UX experience as well, right? Somebody lands on mystore.com/product name. Great. Super easy. It's a very easy URL to share. It's easy to remember. And most CMSs like Magento will do that for you. I know Shopify adds a little like /products and then the product name. Totally fine. For anyone out there listening that uses Shopify, don't sweat that. I know they add /collections. Don't sweat that either. Google understands, and they're used to picking up like all these different platform specific things. So for a bigger site, that's where the challenges come into play. So I'll just touch upon that very quickly. But what I would recommend is, you know, you have layers of categories, right? You could have men's and women's, and you could have shirts, right? So then you multiply that. You end up with men's shirts and women's shirts. Then you could layer that even further, men's sports shirts and women's sports shirts. So every like level of navigation or categorization you add, it's like having a multi-dimensional database, right? You just keep adding layers of categories that exist. So what I would recommend is use keyword search volume, figure out where the cutoff point, where the search volume drops off. So in other words, let's say you get to women's yellow sports t-shirts, and you go to Google AdWords Planner and look for search volume. If it's 0 or maybe even 10, if it's dropping off at that point, configure your CMS or your e-commerce store to, instead of making that like a static category page, to at that point turn on what's called parameters or maybe faceted navigation. So it prevents that from being a static URL and it switches it to being dynamic essentially. And so you're not ending up with hundreds to thousands to hundreds of thousands extra pages indexed that don't need to be. And this is one of the biggest technical challenge for big e-commerce sites, right? Is you see it all the time, is they end up with like 500,000 pages indexed when really like 2,000 of them are actual products that are getting traffic. So that's where you really want to be careful with a big e-commerce website, is to figure out where that cutoff point is for all the layers of categories, and then cut off really the ability to have static URLs existing for those so they don't get an index, so they don't keep getting crawled needlessly. That could be literally an entire hour and a half webinar in itself. So that's as far as I'll go with that. But there's plenty of more information online out there about that if listeners have a big site and they want to look at that.
Well, then I mean, we'll move away from some of the technical parts now. Let's look at content marketing and SEO. How do these work together, and what can give some examples of blogging and articles and stuff like that?
Yeah, content marketing is very simply, it's a great way to build your site authority and your popularity and drive a lot more organic traffic than just your products would on their own. So in other words, you've got all your products over here, great. Your traffic volume for that is going to be a fairly set amount. And what I mean by that is like, there's only a certain amount of people searching for a spatula for sale a month, right? So like there's almost a cap to that. But once you start doing content marketing, now you're tapping into really an infinite amount of search demand for information around your product. That what I call is like top of funnel traffic, right? So it's not somebody that's going to buy a spatula right away, but if somebody's looking for tips for how to use a spatula and they land on your content marketing article, they may become a buyer down the road. So that's sort of how it could tie into your ROI and your revenue, but it's such a huge opportunity to drive extra search traffic, which then, by the way, increases the authority of your website, which makes your products rank even better. So whenever I outline an SEO plan for most people, and when I taught the classic Conversion Excel, the number one thing that I had on the list was to do some amount or some fashion of content marketing to your site, because the opportunity that exists versus the potential ROI from that, if you do it in a smart way, is just too big, in my opinion, to pass up on.
Right. Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. So in terms of a SEO action plan, we've covered a lot of details here. Do you have kind of like a checklist that people can work from, so we can just give them a bit of a top down on what to do?
Sure. Specifically to product sellers, Amazon sellers, people with Shopify stores, number one, really nail down the core of your website, the categories, the products, all the things I talked about before. That's step number one. You know, if you don't have great product pages, anything else you do isn't going to matter, because you're not going to convert as well as you could. So that's step number one for all the listeners out there selling products. Really nail down your e-commerce site. Great design, easy navigation, all the stuff we talked about. Then from there, this is where the fork in the road might happen, depending upon your interests and strengths. So if some people heard my content marketing spiel a second ago and that really grabbed them, do content marketing. Because the second step for anybody is going to be to find a way to promote your site, to build your authority. Content marketing is a great path for that if that kind of grabbed your attention. If it didn't grab your attention, maybe you're somebody that likes to talk a lot, like me apparently, which you can probably all see by watching this video. Then maybe you want to do some more of this co-marketing stuff that I mentioned, like be a guest on other podcasts or give a webinar with a company that's in a related field. So like utilize whatever's kind of grabbing your interest and where you think you could be successful with the type of promotion or content that you could do. But that's step number two, is you have to find a way to promote yourself and your store and your company in one way or another. And whether that turns into link building or whether that turns into, like I said, content marketing, that's sort of up to your unique strengths. Then from there, it's really a cyclical process, right? You're going to start driving traffic to your site. Then you got to do other things I'm sure your listeners know about: CRO, UX, optimizing your shopping funnel, like all these things that will like turn that traffic into a higher percentage of buyers. Yeah. And then it just goes round and round.
Cool. And let's wrap this on Amazon listings as well now, because obviously people are looking to help rank their Amazon listings externally from Amazon. A lot of people running successfully using Facebook ads and various different ads running traffic. We've discussed on previous seller sessions using Google ads and actually getting Amazon to recognize what you are doing in terms of your brand name and running to the listings, and they'll pick up through dynamic ads themselves, and so they'll start to take over. Obviously there's no way of getting access to the back end on Amazon, so we can't run conversion tracking and stuff like that. But give us your take on someone's got their Amazon listing. Okay, now Amazon has got massive authority. Now how does sellers take advantage of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think like you said, Amazon has a massive domain authority. It goes back to what I talked about. Like if you're Facebook or Amazon, you've got like 100 domain authority probably. So I'm assuming if your Amazon product listing page, and this is where we might chat a little bit about it, if you've got a great product listing page, you could probably rank in google.com for that product search. So what I would do is whatever your niche is or your product area is, go to Google and just do this, start manually, start searching around for the product intent searches I talked about a few minutes ago for your product. And my suspicion is if you're not seeing any Amazon results there, if you're seeing Target and Walmart and like all these other things, but no Amazon listing, that's potentially your opportunity to come in and fill that gap, right? Because Google, how many searches do you see Wikipedia show up in a Google search?
Nearly all. They're always in the top 5, aren't they, Wikipedia? Yeah.
Google loves Wikipedia and Amazon because they trust them. They trust them so much, and that's so important to Google search results because think about how hard it is for them to get trust in other websites that maybe aren't as well known, right? So if they see an opportunity to rank an Amazon listing, even if it's a slight relevance mismatch, they're going to rank an Amazon listing for something. So that'd be step number one, is start searching around in Google in products in your niche, products that you're selling or thinking of selling, and look for spots where Amazon is not ranking. That would be number one. Then, and maybe you can speak to this, Danny, a little bit more. Once you determine what product listing page you want to rank, it would come back to those basics of SEO: title tag, URL, getting reviews on the page, getting a lot of product information. So can you speak to how would somebody optimize their title tag or influence that in their Amazon listing?
Well, you've got the canonical URL. So there's, and it's debated, but there's an element whereby you can put the first 4 or 5 keywords within your title should show up in the canonical URL. So no one can address the exact, what's the word for it? We haven't got end-to-end proof how well that works, but it can't really do it any harm. If you've got domain authority with Amazon, you're in a good niche, but there is some volume of traffic there. The chances are your product will appear in the search results page. If you've nailed the canonical URL and it does make sense, then it can only benefit your listing and give it more authority, because you've got to bear in mind you're already riding the back of the authority because it's Amazon. It's not like you've just done it on your website and you've gone, oh, I want to place that next to Amazon on page 1, because it just doesn't work like that. But yeah, I mean, obviously good reviews are going to make a difference, but I think the biggest one is having a clickable title. Is that what you can be in danger of is on Amazon is that you can just do keyword stuffing as an example, right? And so it's not got the readability that you would expect that for a customer to read. Like, you're looking for maybe programming for robots rather than selling the benefits of the product. So if you're in Google search, you're addressing a different audience now, because you're talking about, one is on platform with Amazon, which is your main target, but your secondary target is off Amazon. If you've got loads of robotic words that's just a load of junk, then your click-through rates are going to be diminishing in Google, because even though you may rank, or Google might pick up different signals and say, right, this is pretty much junk, we're not going to rank that. So that can work against you. So I think the biggest attribute that you're going to have with this is going to be is having a good structured title, get the canonical URL structured as best as possible to enhance your experience. But what I would like to touch on, and which you may be able to elaborate. Now, this would be black hat, right? And I'm not suggesting they're doing this, but normally, like from my understanding, if you've got bad links built to your website, you end up going to go in the sandbox and you're not going to be ranking, and Google is going to penalize you. There's also that Google will protect you from being penalized if a third-party person came in and fired a load of backlinks at your website to destroy your rankings intent. Yeah. So that can be attributed. But I'm wondering, is there a way to build backlinks to your Amazon listing, but using quality links? You might find a way of doing it with .edu links and stuff like that. Surely taking a .edu or a significant links that are viable out there, and you add that blend with linking them to your Amazon and backlink building to your Amazon link, I'm imagining that's going to be like setting the torch paper alight, is it, or not?
I think there could be some quality ways to do this. And one thing that comes to mind for me is back to getting articles in publications where that might be curated roundups of products that go together, or reviews of products. And if you have any control over that, simply use the Amazon link to your listing versus linking to your Shopify store. To your point, a lot of the Amazon listing rankings are probably going to be backlinks. They're probably going to be link authority to that Amazon listing, or maybe even to your store. I would imagine Google might have a way to figure out the authority of your store listing within Amazon. So that could be part of it too, trying to build backlinks to your just store page.
Well, what about this as an example, just off the top of the head? You've got an Amazon store. I'm just going to try and piece this together. You've got an Amazon store. You sell a range of similar kind of products. You could do top 5 listicles XX of X, and then you review all of these 5 products which are related, and they are then on an authoritative site like a magazine. I'm not saying that you would write. Someone else may be writing about a certain subject that's in your field with a number of your links on a high page authority website, which could then generate the benefits there in terms of the backlinks and enhancement with Amazon as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's possible too. That's certainly a way to maybe influence achieving a rank. One thing I'm thinking of now that I didn't do, because I'm thinking of it as we're brainstorming, but you can go to a link tool called Open Site Explorer. It's part of Moz. And if you punch in Amazon.com and go to top pages, it's a certain report in there. You can see all of the pages that get the most links on Amazon. So what I would do is figure out, well, what are all the listing pages that have gotten links on Amazon, and try to reverse engineer back how those links maybe have happened. And then that could turn into your strategy, because this could be a little bit different for somebody in food products versus electronics versus clothing. So I think I would dig into the link metrics of existing Amazon listings and seeing where they're getting those, and then kind of digging through that and seeing where you could maybe do the same thing.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, I think that may be a good point to wrap it. So do you want to give if people want to get in contact with you for like your agency, got questions and stuff, what's the best way to reach you?
Sure. Let's start with Twitter, because that's kind of a hub of everything. If you find my Twitter at Dan_Shure, that's SHURE, Dan_SHURE, you can get to everything from there. But then my website is evolvingseo.com. You can email me, Dan@evolvingseo.com. I do get a lot of email these days. I do get back to everyone, but it might take a little bit of time sometimes. So you can definitely reach out to me there. And I would love for the listeners to check out the podcast, Experts on the Wire, in iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, all the places, or evolvingseo.com/wire, WIRE. Lots of SEO on, and also general online marketing information in that show as well. And
you've had some great guests, haven't you? You've had Rand Fishkin on. Who else have you had on the show?
Just today, we published an episode with Noah Kagan, formerly of Mint and Facebook. Some good stuff in there. Yeah, we had Rand Fishkin, from the founder of Moz, John Lee Dumas, who hosts Entrepreneurs on Fire podcast. He's been on the show. Annie Cushing is an analytics genius and expert. She's been on the show. Also, I'd love to have people that maybe the listeners haven't heard of, but who do really amazing stuff. So there's a show with somebody by the name of Carrie Jones from a content marketing agency who talks about getting 300 links to one piece of content in a boring industry. And she literally goes through the exact process for how they do that. So there's lots of really tactical information on the show.
Excellent. Well, guys, thank you for listening. We're going to be back in 2 weeks' time. Sorry about some of the audio issues that we've had. We'll make sure that we'll have that sorted for next time round. But again, thank you very much for your time. And Dan, thank you very much for coming on board and sharing your knowledge with us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
No worries. Take care. See you later, guys. Bye.